You were doing so well. Days clean, maybe weeks, maybe months. Your relationships were healing. People were starting to trust you again. You saw a future that didn't revolve around shame and secrecy. And then you reached for the exact thing you knew would ruin it all. Society looks at a moment like this and blames a lack of willpower. We treat self-sabotage as a moral failure or a strictly chemical hook that overpowered your discipline. But the psychiatrist Carl Jung discovered something entirely different. He mapped the human psyche and realized that a relapse is not an accident. It is a calculated attack launched from a hidden part of your own mind. The hardest thing for an addict to accept is that some part of them actually chose deliberate destruction over happiness. If self-sabotage is actually a successful defense mechanism, we have to ask what exactly it is trying to protect you from. Treating the substance is useless until you decode the motive behind the self-destruction. You are in an ancient spiritual war, and your addiction is simply the chosen battlefield. Most of us walk around believing we are one unified self, one person making decisions and choosing actions. Jung found that this is a comforting lie. You are a house with many rooms, and not all the inhabitants want you to succeed. Jung called the suppressed, rejected parts of your identity the shadow. Over time, these neglected emotions form what is known as an autonomous complex, a splinter of your psyche that operates entirely independently, with its own survival instinct. The shadow bypasses your conscious mind entirely, latching on to the deepest prehistoric strata of your brain. This primitive core doesn't care about your future. It only knows immediate survival. The shadow hijacks this system, convincing your ancient brain the substance is an absolute life or death necessity. These behaviors channel archetypal energies, primordial urges for chaos, ecstasy, or the complete dissolution of the self that have driven human behavior for thousands of generations. So when an addict says, "I want this," Jung would ask, "Which you?" The craving isn't your authentic desire. It is an ancient, autonomous invader screaming for relief. The invader doesn't choose your weaknesses at random. The shadow uses your addiction to offer a counterfeit solution to a very real, legitimate psychological wound. If your addiction is pornography, the shadow knows you crave connection but are terrified of real intimacy. It provides a substitute, the sensation of being desired, requiring absolutely no human vulnerability or risk of rejection. Or perhaps you are afraid of your own potential. If you heal, people will expect you to succeed. A relapse acts as a shield, keeping expectations so low you never have to face the terror of trying your absolute hardest and still failing. Addiction also protects you from grief. As long as you stay chemically numb, you can perpetually postpone the agonizing process of mourning your lost time, your ruined relationships, and your past trauma. The genius of the shadow is that it turns your own highest values against you. If you pride yourself on your intelligence and control, it traps you in behaviors so obviously self-destructive that your own mind becomes a torture device. You watch yourself make the same irrational choices, fully aware yet unable to stop. The true function of the addiction is to guarantee that you never have to face the crushing responsibility of being awake and whole. Most traditional recovery programs focus purely on eliminating the desire and fighting the shadow. Jung realized this is like trying to amputate your own arm. The more you fight it, the stronger and more creative it gets at sabotaging you. You cannot kill the invader because it is made of your own psychic material. Instead, you have to turn on the lights. You have to face the shadow without judgment and integrate it. Separating your identity from the craving creates a pocket of psychological space. When the urge hits, you observe it without identifying with it. You can say, "That is the craving speaking, not me. That is the complex, and I do not have to obey it." Then you interrogate it. You ask the shadow directly, "What wound are you trying to heal? What unacknowledged pain are you so desperately trying to protect me from?" Your addiction ceases to be the enemy. It becomes a vital symptom, a flare sent up from the dark, showing you exactly where your soul requires healing. Achieving that healing requires what Jungian psychology calls ego death. This is the total dissolution of the false self. It means allowing your identity as an addict and the comforting victim narrative you've built around it to completely die. We are often more terrified of losing our familiar, suffering identity than we are of physical death. Letting the addict die means stepping forward into a void where you do not know who you are. True recovery is not returning to the person you were before the addiction. That person is gone. It requires stepping into the absolute unknown and trusting that you can build a new identity from scratch. This is the ultimate human initiation. Like the hero's journey in ancient myths, it requires a descent into the underworld. You do not become who you are meant to be by staying comfortable. You become it by facing the thing that terrifies you most. The war for your soul is the only battle that matters. You can disappear into a familiar hell, or let the false self die to finally find out who you are.